EastEnders Phil Mitchell has revealed a devastating secret about Nigel Bates, with Julie left devastated. Julie returned to Walford this week after collecting the rest of her belongings from Scotland and also brought her 3 pet chickens to the square. Phil was unhappy that Julie began taking over her husband Nigel's care and disturbing the routine they had created over the last few months. The living arrangement caused even more upset in today's episode, with the chickens making noise all night and keeping everyone awake. Phil aired his grievances with Julie, and the pair continued to clash as they prepared to take Nigel to an assessment to determine how his dementia has progressed. At the appointment, the doctor praised Nigel for his healthy lifestyle, but it was clear that his short-term memory has deteriorated significantly since his last assessment. Julie attempted to prompt Nigel's memory during the test, and later she refused to accept that her husband had got worse, encouraging him to think positively. When Julie went out, Nigel used the opportunity to have a private word with Phil and said that he didn't want the situation with his wife to cause problems. Phil eventually admitted that he can't stand Julie, and he doesn't think she is good for him. He told Nigel that Julie shouldn't be acting like his dementia doesn't exist and pretending that the disease isn't going to kill him. But Julie overheard this and confronted him, with the pair clashing once again about how they should be supporting Nigel. This led Phil to explain just why Nigel initially decided to come to Walford, and he revealed to Julie that her husband was previously planning to take his own life. How will Julie react to this distressing news about her husband, and will it change her relationships with both Nigel and Phil? EastEnders. Phil Mitchell exposes Nigel Bates' secret battle, Julie shattered by devastating truth. EastEnders has never shied away from hard-hitting, emotional storylines, and the latest development involving Nigel Bates, his wife Julie, and Walford stalwart Phil Mitchell proves just that. What began as a family conflict over care and routine soon spirals into one of the most heart-wrenching revelations in recent soap history. Nigel's dementia battle, already painful and complicated, takes on a devastating new dimension when Phil finally admits a shocking truth, that Nigel had once considered ending his own life. For Julie, who has been clinging desperately to hope and denial, the revelation is like a dagger to the heart. And for Phil, who has unexpectedly found himself as a guardian of both Nigel's well-being and his darkest secrets, the confession risks shattering the fragile balance they have all tried to maintain. This is the story of family, truth, denial, and the crushing reality of dementia, told in a way that only EastEnders can deliver. Julie's return to Walford. Julie's reappearance on the square should have been a comfort for Nigel, but instead it has unsettled the careful stability that Phil had managed to establish. Returning from Scotland, where she had been sorting out their old life and collecting her belongings, Julie arrived with more than just suitcases. In true EastEnders fashion, she also brought along her 3 pet chickens, which immediately added chaos to the already tense household. Their clucking and squawking through the night left Phil exasperated, but the noise of the animals was nothing compared to the emotional storm that Julie's return unleashed. She was determined to reclaim her role as Nigel's primary carer, stepping into routines Phil had spent months creating and undoing the fragile peace he had carved out for himself and Nigel. Phil, a man known for his gruff exterior and unwillingness to tolerate nonsense, struggled from the start. But beneath his sharp words was a deeper concern, that Julie's insistence on denying the progression of Nigel's illness could cause more harm than good. Dementia's cruel grip. The heart of this storyline is Nigel's dementia, a disease that strips memory, independence, and identity, not just from the person affected but from everyone who loves them. The assessment that Nigel faced with his doctor was a sobering moment, exposing just how much the illness had progressed since his last evaluation. While the doctor praised Nigel for his healthy lifestyle, the assessment revealed painful truths. His short-term memory had deteriorated significantly, leaving both Phil and Julie confronted with the reality that no amount of positive thinking could reverse what was happening. Julie, however, refused to accept this. During the appointment, she tried to prompt Nigel's memory, urging him on as though sheer willpower might make a difference. Later, she encouraged him to think positively, to believe that he was not getting worse. Her refusal to acknowledge the decline wasn't just about optimism, it was denial, and it left Phil increasingly frustrated. The clash between Phil and Julie. The tension between Phil and Julie boiled over repeatedly. For months, Phil had been managing Nigel's care, building routines, and accepting the challenges head-on. Julie's arrival disrupted all of that, and her refusal to confront the truth clashed directly with Phil's brutal honesty. Phil voiced what Julie would not, that pretending Nigel wasn't ill, or that his dementia wasn't fatal, was not helping him. To Phil, the greatest act of love was to face the truth, no matter how painful. To Julie, the greatest act of love was to shield Nigel from despair. It was an impossible impasse. Nigel's private confession. When Julie stepped out of the house one day, Nigel seized the chance to speak to Phil privately. Though his illness had stolen much from him, moments of clarity still pierced through, and this was one of them. He told Phil that he didn't want the situation with Julie to cause tension, and he acknowledged, in his quiet way, the toll his illness was taking on those around him. It was then that Phil admitted the unvarnished truth: he couldn't stand Julie. He didn't believe she was good for Nigel, because she refused to accept reality. And then, with the weight of weeks, perhaps months, pressing on him, Phil revealed the darkest truth of all. Nigel had once planned to take his own life. Julie overhears the truth. Unbeknown to Phil and Nigel, Julie had returned just in time to hear the devastating revelation. The words struck her like a physical blow. Her husband, the man she had stood by, fought for, and tried to protect, had been so consumed by despair that he had considered ending it all. For Julie, the shock was doubled by Phil's role as the reluctant confessor. She felt betrayed, devastated, and cornered. All of her efforts to keep Nigel positive, all of her insistence that things could be okay, suddenly seemed fragile and foolish. The confrontation. Julie confronted Phil in a heated clash that laid bare their opposing views on how best to support Nigel. For Phil, shielding Nigel from reality was dangerous. For Julie, stripping away his hope was cruel. The confrontation was raw, emotional, and deeply uncomfortable. Both were right, and both were wrong. But beneath their arguments was the simple truth: they both loved Nigel, and they were both terrified of losing him. The devastating reality of dementia in Walford. EastEnders has often tackled social issues with sensitivity and grit, and Nigel's dementia storyline is no exception. Through Nigel, viewers see the slow erosion of memory and independence. Through Julie, they see the denial and heartbreak of loved ones who cannot accept what is happening. And through Phil, an unlikely but powerful carer figure, they see the blunt confrontation with reality, the frustration, and the need for honesty even when it hurts. This three-pronged perspective makes the storyline resonate deeply. It's not just about one man's illness, it's about how illness tests love, family, and resilience. Julie's next move. The big question now is, how will Julie react? The revelation that Nigel once considered ending his life could completely shatter her. It may drive her to cling even tighter to denial, insisting that positivity is the only way forward. Or it may finally force her to face the truth, to grieve for the husband she is slowly losing even while he is still alive. Her relationship with Phil will also be tested. Can she ever forgive him for speaking so bluntly, for shattering the protective bubble she built around herself and Nigel? Or will she eventually see that Phil's honesty, though brutal, came from a place of deep care? The future for Nigel. For Nigel, the road ahead is uncertain. Dementia is a disease that only worsens over time, and EastEnders is unlikely to shy away from showing the painful progression. Fans can expect moments of clarity mixed with confusion, joy mingled with despair, and perhaps even more difficult conversations about care, quality of life, and dignity. Nigel's earlier plan to end his life adds another haunting layer to his story. Will those dark thoughts resurface as his illness progresses? Will his loved ones be able to protect him from himself? Phil Mitchell, the unexpected carer. For decades, Phil Mitchell has been known as Walford's hard man, the tough-as-nails figure who solved problems with fists, threats, or sheer force of will. But this storyline has peeled back the layers of Phil's character, revealing a man capable of deep loyalty, compassion, and responsibility. Phil has stepped into Nigel's life not because it was easy but because it was necessary. In caring for Nigel, he has shown a side of himself that few in Walford, least of all Julie, expected. His willingness to tell the truth, even when it is devastating, may prove to be the very thing that keeps Nigel grounded. Community reactions. The EastEnders community, both on and off screen, has already been moved by the unfolding storyline. Viewers have praised the show for its honest portrayal of dementia and the ripple effect it has on families. Characters within Walford may also soon play bigger roles in Nigel's journey. Old friends, neighbors, and even unlikely allies could step forward to support him. As dementia progresses, care becomes not just a family matter but a community one, and the square has always been a place where neighbors rally in times of crisis. A storyline that resonates. At its core, this storyline is about love and loss. It is about how families cope when faced with a disease that cannot be beaten, only managed. It is about truth versus denial, and about the thin line between hope and despair. For Julie, the revelation about Nigel's suicidal thoughts is a devastating blow. For Phil, it is a burden finally shared. For Nigel, it is the unspoken truth of living with an illness that robs him of control. EastEnders has crafted a storyline that resonates far beyond Albert Square, shining a light on the harsh realities of dementia while also exploring the universal themes of love, grief, and the fight to hold on to dignity. What comes next? The stage is now set for an emotional roller coaster. Will Julie find the strength to face the truth? Will Phil continue to be Nigel's rock, even as tensions with Julie rise? And most importantly, how will Nigel's journey unfold as his dementia progresses? One thing is certain. EastEnders will not shy away from showing the painful, messy, and deeply human realities of this battle. And viewers, alongside the characters, will be forced to confront the heartbreaking question. How do you support someone you love when the person you knew is slowly slipping away?